So it's often a joke on social media, which isn't very funny, as a matter of fact, but it's how much seeds gardeners actually buy and collect. We touched on this in a previous episode. I believe it may have been the last video, but I want to go over that because yes, we do buy a lot of seeds, but there's ways to go about it to where you don't have to buy a lot of seeds. You can continuously get plants to harvest from, and really, to an extent, you almost have to buy seeds once and then plant forever. But there's all kinds of ways you can do this, and we need to really keep that in mind and use all of these tools in our toolbox. Do a little bit of, I'll take you around and show you a couple of options. But first of all, we had a tropical storm the other day, very weak tropical storm, but all of our tomatoes are ripe like all at once. We're getting a huge flush. So I do have to harvest that during this video. But I also made a boo-boo where I put some nectar out for the bees, and the flight path is right over where I'm gonna be. I wasn't thinking ahead, but this should be interesting. So we'll see how it goes. But when it comes to buying seeds, you know, it's not one of those things as we go through all these where it's like, hey, you're just gonna buy seeds once and then you're done. That's not exactly what it is. That's a little clickbaity, if you'd say. But what it is over time, you're gonna figure it out. So what I mean by that is over time, you're gonna figure out different plants that you like, right? So for instance, we have these tomatoes here, which we do need to harvest all of these. And you know, I don't necessarily, I'm not a big fan of any kind of cherry tomato, so I could care less. So, you know, this, I don't know if it really counts, but, you know, since we're doing tomatoes, you know, I really like my aromas. I am really falling in love quickly with this Ace Bush tomato here. Really liking it. It's giving me everything that I want. What that means is these are becoming good candidates for me to basically have perpetual planting material. So I hesitate to use perpetual seeds because this isn't all about saving seeds. This is about a lot of different things and a lot of different techniques. Clearly, the first technique is absolutely saving seeds, and some seeds are very difficult to save and some aren't. There's a particular way to save seeds so you make sure you get a pure seed and not something super mixed. So for instance, something got into my mater there. And by the way, we got like, I don't know, we didn't get a crazy amount of rain for a tropical storm, but we did get some splitting because of that. So that's why I wanted to come out and get this. But, you know, once you figure out what you want, then it's time, you know, you grow a plant. Let's do this in a multi-year basis here. Okay. So your first year you get a pack of seeds and you grow it and you're like, hey, I like this plant. You know, I like this, but I hesitate to tell you to, like, on your first year, just pick a seed and stay with it and fall in love with it immediately. I think you should definitely do a couple years and try a couple different things out, but keep it within reason. You know, it's tomatoes in particular are crazy because there's like hundreds and hundreds of varieties. It's kind of insane. So, you know, not everything is, but what traits do you want? You know, do you want a heavy producer? Do you want large tomatoes? Do you want indeterminate tomatoes? Do you want determinate tomatoes? So for me, my biggest thing is I want a good slicer. All of my tomatoes I want to be determinate. So we want determinate slicer tomatoes, and then we want our paste type tomatoes. So that's why we really honed in on the good old classic non-sexy Roma tomato. Nothing crazy about it, but it's a solid producer. It ticks a lot of the boxes. We got a lot of splitting actually, but this will be a good example. But when it comes to it, you've done it for a couple years, you've found the seed that you want. So now what do? Well, what we're gonna do is you're gonna start isolating that plant to some extent so you can save the seed. Now, does that mean that you have to totally let that plant just do nothing and save seed from like all of your tomatoes? Absolutely not. I mean, here's a tomato right here. And let's just take it apart. Well, all the seeds are leaking out of it. But look at all these seeds in here. You know what I mean? You could take 4 or 5 of these and have years worth of tomatoes. I mean, it's no big deal. You know what I mean? So you don't have to do a whole lot, and you don't want to take from tomatoes like this. You want to take from really, really ripe tomatoes, and you want to pick the best plant possible. So if I wanted to save from this plant's actually done pretty good this year, but being that I only did one plant, it may not be the best option for me. So just keep that in mind. This is why I'm not a big fan of cherry tomatoes. I mean, this is like my probably 8th harvest like this. Every couple days, we're just getting a crap load of them. And to be honest, we can keep getting more. I mean, I even pick them like this so that they will ripen over time and not have them all done at once. But we're gonna have to do some more drying at this point. On tomatoes though, you know, stretching it. So like for instance, right now, we have some of the varieties that we like. So if we come over here, you know, we do some propagating. So propagating is not new, but is a really good way. Make your seeds stretch even longer. So we'll get a full second crop except for the one here that's struggling. And this one, these are the tomatoes that we planted that were already grown. So we need to go ahead and get those up and support them. But you know, we get a whole nother crop, and we didn't even use another seed at all for this. So this works out really good, and it is a very good viable option. And if there's a will, there's a way. There is almost no limit to the plants that you can propagate. You just gotta figure it out, and trial and error. And some of them are really easy, some of them are very difficult, some of them are worth it, and some of them aren't. So just keep that in mind. But you know, you can use all of that to your advantage and really stretch that seed even further. Now, I did forget to say one thing about seed saving. All seeds are different, right? So let's say that I wanted to save this seed here on this corn. The problem is we don't grow a lot of corn. So in order to do that, we have to let an ear get over ripened to the point to where it's not edible. So we don't really want to do that. But I also don't know if I want to keep this corn. So far, it's looking pretty good. We've got corn on every stalk at this point, but we don't know if we really want to keep this corn. So we got to hold off and just keep trying year after year until we figure it out. And then we could do it, because some seeds are more than others as well. So we want to keep that in mind. When it comes to different plants too, so we're going to be doing our Roma tomatoes next. Also remember this, saving seed from hybrids is more difficult and doesn't really work out very well, because a lot of times what they'll do is they are not a stabilized seed, and they may revert back to the parent seed. So, you know, you may not get exactly what you're looking for. Oh man, that's not good. Something has actually been nibbling on that. So that's good that we're coming out here and getting all these off. That's today's tomato harvest. Got half a basket, and that bad boy is heavy. Talk about what we planted in our garden, and then we're gonna move on to the way you plant outside, and then the way you seed start. So the amount of seeds that we use, and I'm talking about the literal number of seeds we use to get, now again, I don't know, it's probably 15 pounds of tomatoes today. And we'll probably do that 2 to 3 more times at minimum for the first crop, right? So we've got 4 and 4 seeds. We used 8 times 3 is 24 seeds total. Now we've got multiple varieties, which is okay. So we used 24 seeds to get that. So let's talk, well, I was gonna go the opposite direction, but let's do this. When you're starting inside, so the typical nature, and it's across the board, is you always sow a little bit extra, right? I usually put 3 seeds per seed starting cell. Now, one of these tomatoes, I just pulled them all off, but I'll show you the tomato itself. This tomato right here in particular is a roadster tomato. Now this is a very expensive seed. It was $10 for, I believe, 50 seeds. That's very expensive. So I only put 1 seed in per, right? And now I do have to double check and make sure that they're not a hybrid. And if they're not a hybrid, then I'm gonna save the seed. And so that 50 that $10, this one tomato will give us probably, I don't know, $30 worth of seeds at minimum, right? So this is our Ace Bush 55 tomato. This is, we sell these in our seed shop. They're $3.50. You can grow on them for years off that. But this one will give us many, many packs of seeds. The reason why I bring that up is because those roadsters, I don't know if I said this already, it's a little hot today. I'm in coastal North Carolina. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning and it's 86 degrees, so it's pretty warm. Those roadster tomatoes, we only put one seed in the seed cell, right? We wanted to be very careful with that. And not to mention the fact that I wasn't sure how much, if they were hybrids or what the story was with them. So I just wanted to be very, very careful and say, hey, if I need to grow them for another year, typically I want to grow a crop for 2 to 3 years before I decide like this is gonna be a mainstay in my garden. My goal is to get to where ultimately everything would be like a certain variety that I like, a certain few varieties. There's just so many to choose from, it's insane. But, and then, you know, the Ace Bush, I'll put 3 in, whatever. If it's an older seed, you know, let's say, and this is typically when you save seeds, you'll have packs of like hundreds of seeds, and it's, you know, 4 or 5 years old, I'll put 10 seeds in a hole just to use them up. But I know I'm gonna save them for the next year. So just be very careful when you're starting your seeds, and you know, you don't always have to go super heavy and super crazy putting them in. Sometimes you can put in 1 or 2 seeds. I typically do 3. Squashes, they're pretty cheap, so I'll put 3 in, but I've done 1 and it works great. Rarely ever do I get less than 100% germination rate. Rarely. It does happen, but just keep that in mind as you go forward. As far as the way you plant, this is a really good example here. This is, okay, I thought it was Seminole pumpkin, but it's not. This is our Waltham butternut squash. And I'm not sure how this one's gonna act. I hate these beetles. I'm not sure how this one's gonna, this is a honey nut squash. So we definitely want to get it to go up, first of all. But the way you plant it is very important to this conversation. I'm not even showing you what I'm doing. I'm just feeding this around. It's very important to this conversation because if I let this plant, the goal is to let this plant go up, all the way up, and then all the way back down and come across the ground. As soon as it hits the ground, it's gonna be putting out roots here, and here, and here, and here, essentially growing and making it stronger to get more and more harvest off of it. Go back to any video from last July all the way up to October, and you can see how that that Seminole pumpkin, excuse me, went up, over, down, through the garden, back through and around, and everywhere it went, it was dropping roots in. So, you know, I used 2 seeds and I got 80 Seminole pumpkins off of it. I had so many pumpkins off 2 seeds that we got tired of eating them. I still have about 10 left at the house that we're gonna use to feed the deer for hunting season. So if you look at it that way, and I know a lot of you are like, oh no, the poor deer. Well, sorry, but this is the reality of the situation. If you look at it that way, let's say we got all of our squash out of it, and then we put that out, and then we get a deer off of that. Yeah, that's crazy, right? So not only are you getting, you're getting all of your nutrients, you're getting, I mean, caloric value for 2 seeds is through the roof at that point. So just think about it that way as you're planting and knowing like, hey, there's different ways to do it. There's different plants that do it that way. So I actually do believe cucumbers could possibly do it that way. If you wanted to grow them along the ground, I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, kind of is what it is. Another one that's really good, sweet potatoes here. So they do the exact same thing. As they run along the ground, they're gonna drop roots, and then everywhere they put roots, and that's why right now, so the goal is these sweet potatoes will come out of the garden bed eventually, but what we're doing right now is we are routing them through the garden so that they can get good soil contact. And we may even just, doesn't really matter, but routing them in the garden as much as possible so they will put soil contact in, and then they will start making roots and making more potatoes within this garden bed. Once they come out of the garden bed and go this way, we are not looking to harvest potatoes out of our yard. What we're looking for is for the plant to be able to get more water and more nutrients to grow more in the garden bed. Now that being said, I did a video last year and I showed you little itty bitty teeny weeny sweet potato about this big. I even posted a picture of one on Instagram. I had like 5 slips out of it. Both of these beds are taken off of little slips this big that we normally would not really eat, and did not waste anything off of it. So we got a full bed. We haven't bought sweet potato. We bought sweet potato slips twice. And this is, I don't even want to say how long I've been growing sweet potatoes. Probably our 6th or 7th year growing them. And the only reason why we bought them the first year because we didn't know we didn't have anything to do, or we didn't have anything to start with. And then we started sweet potato slips the second year, but I wanted to try a different variety. I'm gonna buy them one more time. And that's if I find a Carolina Ruby sweet potato. That's what I wanna grow. I wanna switch all of this over. So right now we have a combination of Georgia Jets and Beauregard, and I wanna switch everything over to the Carolina Ruby sweet potato. The first year we would do Georgia Jet, Carolina Ruby, and then the second year we would do all Carolina Ruby. But other than that, that one investment of 20 bucks has given us, over the 6 years, I would imagine we've had about 300 pounds of sweet potatoes off of an original $25 investment. And then each year it just goes from there. So this year is going to be a smaller harvest. We're actually growing in smaller beds. So both of these beds are smaller than the back ones. But next year we're gonna have a bigger harvest because we're either gonna do 1 or maybe even 2 beds. So this goes really good with something like white potatoes too. You save a white potato, you do it right. Each potato, if you do the math, in a 4x8 bed, I put 30 potatoes in to grow. And as I was harvesting, I was kind of roughly counting, but I was counting in this bed, and we were getting roughly 5 to 6 potatoes per plant. So that means we got about 150, let's just call it 150 potatoes out of it. We needed to plant 30. If you can get 2 slips, or 2 chits is what they're called for that, I think, whatever. If you can get 2 potato plants out of each potato, and that's being very conservative, a lot of times you can get 4, but let's say we get 2, that means 15 of those potatoes need to be saved. No, I take that back. You can get 4 because if I cut the potato in half, I usually get 2. So, and then I can cut them again. So 4, that means that we need to keep about 7 to 8 potatoes to do a whole new bed. Not to mention, we can do it 2 times a year here. I haven't done a successful fall potato harvest, so I'm not prepared to speak about that yet. I did a very minimal test last year and seemed to work out well. I mean, hell, potato plant is from last year, and there's a potato. It just kind of sat dormant all winter. So there's absolutely, you can do it, but I don't know, I can't talk about that. This channel, I just don't go on about stuff that I don't know about, so keep that in mind. But these are ways that you don't have to always buy seeds. So pick your varieties, pick your methods, test them out, and then go from there. And you can save more money, and you can have basically unlimited food as long as you take care of your garden right.